Welcome to Rock and Roll Fridays, a podcast on musical encounters and
Welcome to
life.
Rock and Roll Fridays, and I'm so happy to have a guest. And this is going to be a very, very good one because it combines two of my passions, music and concert posters. So welcome Mitch Diamond to Rock and Roll Fridays.
Hi, Michael. Good to be here.
So Mitch has told me he's 71 years old and he does not look 71 because he does martial arts and dancing, which is a great combo in itself. So you got to keep moving, right?
That's it. That's it. It makes a big difference.
And music, right? Music keeps you young.
Well, I dance to music. So I'm listening to music all the time.
That's awesome. So Mitch and I were talking before the podcast started, right? We were talking about concert posters, and concert posters have changed over the course of the music industry over the years. They've become really collector's items and artwork and artists. And I've had music artists on my podcast before, but Mitch has a great story of how he's gathered a massive collection of concert posters. So first, Mitch, let's talk about what I always ask all my guests. What's music mean to you? Why do you have so many 45s? Why do you have so many albums? What is it about music?
Obsessive compulsive disorder. That's number one. But when I find something I like, I just get really into it. And I've been in the right place at the right time a few times in my life. One time was when I was a teenager, and my best friend, his name was Stan Leventhal, and his uncle was Harold Leventhal, who was the manager of Woody Guthrie, Leadbelly, and produced the first Bob Dylan concert in Carnegie Hall, Chapter Hall in the 60s. So there was that. And then also, as a folkie, I was into the folk scare of the 60s. And I was into, Peter, Paul, and Mary, and Phil Oakes and all those guys.
Yeah.
And unbeknownst to me, Jean Ritchie lived 4 miles down the road. And she gave a concert at our school, and I was enthralled. And we had eventually invited her into our house, for a hootenanny, a ceilidh. And all of a sudden, I got into traditional folk music. So I really got drawn into that. And then a third time, friends of mine moved into an apartment building, a two-family house that was owned by Nick Pearls, who owned Yazoo Records, that was bought up by Shanachie Records.
Mm-hmm.
And he was releasing Blues 78s. He was like one of the first Blues 78s record companies. And I would go to his house, and he was a very weird guy. He had loads of money. His father owned the Pearls Arts Gallery, and they were the American distributors for Alexander Calder Art. So he had all the money in the world that he wanted, and he just went around the South collecting Blues 78s and smoking hashish.
And where were you living during that time? Where
I was in New York. I was in New York City. And so we would go to his house, and before the Robert Johnson or the Charlie Patton records were finally released to the public, I was down in his basement listening to 78s of Robert Johnson. So a lot of it was being in the right place at the right time. And I was just surrounded by music people. And that was my life. I got more and more involved. Started writing for a music magazine. Was a DJ at my college, that kind of stuff. So it was all encompassing.
Yeah. And it sounds like different genres also, mostly folk and blues. Were you
all
into
kinds
other
of American
genres?
music? What? I'm sorry?
Were you into other genres as well?
All kinds of American music. Blues, gospel, rockabilly, country, bluegrass, rock and roll, R&B, Cajun, gospel, anything that was roots oriented. Once it got too overproduced, I didn't like it, which is why between 73 and the punk rock era, there was a lot of music that I really didn't take to. I By 73, with the death of Hendrix and Joplin, I was like, okay, there were a few good groups out, Bowie and the New
Mhm.
York Dolls, but it wasn't until punk rock came around that I went, oh my God, music's back again.
Right.
And I became more involved again.
Awesome. So what, I'm sure you get this question all the time. How'd you end up with what, 5,000, 8,000 music posters in your house?
Well, I don't own all 8,000. Not I found 8,000. There probably, I'd say there's 1,000 in my house. You start off with one. That's how you do it. I started off, I was walking along the streets of New York City in about 1971, and I passed this little place, and it had Elvis lobby cards in its window. And well, that's cool. They were $5 each. So I went in and I bought Elvis lobby cards, and I started buying more and more music lobby cards and more music movie posters to put on my wall. And that's when you can find them in New York in these little stores. Um, and eventually, there are only so many rock and roll movies. And eventually, I had posters for all the rock and roll movies and the R&B movies and the blues movies. And then I saw a James Brown poster, a concert poster. And I went, oh my God. And I found out that the guy who had that poster had more posters at his house. So I went to his house and I bought 30 copies of the James Brown poster. I pulled the Jimi Hendrix poster out of his garbage pail. Out of it was I'm trying to remember which college it was in Rhode Island, but I went to his house and he had the Animals posters and the box tops and some really cool stuff. And I'm looking at his garbage pail and I see all these water damaged James Brown posters. And some of them are facing me and some of them are facing the other way. And I noticed there's one poster that had a different color back than the others. And I pulled it out and it was a Jimi Hendrix poster. I said, how much do you want for that? Oh, $10. Okay, I'll give you 15.
Right.
So, and at that point, I was off. This was about 1979, 1980, and I got bitten by the concert poster bug.
Yeah.
And luckily, it was pretty early in the hobby. Um, I am generally what they call a boxing style collector. Um, I like the older artwork. I mean, I love Grimshaw and I love all the artists that did all the Fillmores and the Grandy Ballrooms and all that.
Hmm.
But that's not necessarily what I collect. I like the old block style with the photo of the artist on it. And that's, except for a couple of exceptions, that's generally what I collect.
And what is the connection with Hat Show printing?
Well, I've always been in touch. Well, Hatch does boxing style posters. They've been
Right.
around since 1893 or something like
They're
that.
they're one of, or probably the oldest
The
printer,
oldest.
right? Yeah. I mean,
They are the oldest existing concert poster printing company that is still printing concert posters and still using block press, old, hand carved blocks and stuff like that. So I would get, early in my career, I would get these Elvis posters, and some were real and some were fake. And I would call up Jim Sheridan, who ran Hatch at the time, and I would ask him, and he would tell me which ones were real and which ones weren't. And I knew the story that they had given away um, all of their filed copies, and all they had left were the blocks. And he had all these wood blocks with hand carvings and stuff like that on it, and you never saw the posters. So I got involved with him. And it was a friendship because he would call me, he asked me if I had something, you know, and then I made this find.
Yeah, what was the find?
Around 1981, I was buying posters off of eBay. 81? No, it was later than that. It wasn't 81.
Yeah,
There was no, it must have been late night. It was about 2001. I'm sorry, I'm getting old. I'm 71 years
no
old.
worries.
So it's 2001, and I go on eBay and I see a Marty Robbins poster, but not just any Marty Robbins poster. It had Marty Robbins singing Long Tall Sally and Tennessee Toddy and his rock and roll songs. I said, oh, this is really great. So I won the poster on eBay. And I called up the guy and I said, well, you got any more? He says, yeah, I got more. I said, great, I'll buy them all. I said, oh, you can't buy them all. I am a lawyer for a guy and I can't put you in touch with him. I said, oh, I tried and tried and tried, and he wouldn't put me in touch with this guy. So a few months later, I see a Johnny Cash poster come up. And I buy these posters and I call up the lawyer again. Say, I bought these, put me in touch with the guy. He says, no, you do not want to meet him. This is a dangerous guy. You don't want to meet him. So third time around, third time was the charm. I bought the posters again. And I said, put me in touch with this guy. He said, okay, but I'm warning you. So he puts me in touch with this guy. The guy's name is Ravin Ray. I'll give you a little background. Is he lived in Nashville and he was a DJ and he produced a lot of concerts. He was friends with Johnny Cash. They went to the same church and he produced a lot of concerts. And at one point, Hatch Showprint needed another printer. So he went in, he got the job. And to get a job at Hatch, you had to have your own printing press. That was the only way. You have a printing press, you can have a job. So he got the job, and in order to make room for his printing press, they were going to throw out all their old concert posters. Wow. So he's looking through they were all folded in fours and in their filing cabinets. So Ray said, I produced some of these concerts. I would love to give some of these to the people whose concerts I produced as gifts. Why don't I work for you for free for 3 months and you give me the concert posters? So that's what they did. They gave him 10,000 concert posters. And in the original batch, some got stolen out of his car. There were Elvis one sheets, 3-foot high Elvis posters and all kinds of stuff. And that's how he got them. And he eventually moved to Alaska. So
of all places,
he took all the 10,000 posters. He brings them up to Alaska. So I call him up and I say, I'm the guy who bought the posters off of eBay the last few times. We should meet. So he said, oh, you can come up. I said, oh, that's great. I took a look at some of the other posters. I'd like to pay around $250 a poster. Is that, I like to pay about $250 a poster. He says, okay. So I said, great. So I get my wife buys me a fishing vest. And I shoved the pockets with $60,000 worth of cash. I mean, who would go onto an airplane with $60,000 worth of cash shoved into their pockets nowadays? Right? So you get stopped, at the gate at the terminal. So I go up to Alaska. He meets me at the airport. I got $60,000 in my pocket, and we're there in the car. And he says, "By the way, the posters are $350." So what do you mean? When I said I'd like to pay $250, you said okay. He said, yes, I meant okay. You want to pay $250, not okay. I'm going to charge you $250. Right. So right then and there, he's beginning to really really piss me off. And then he starts talking. Out of nowhere, he starts throwing out these epithets about people who he's met. And I've been around a long time, but there were epithets I had never heard in my life. And I'm a Jewish guy from Long Island. I was waiting for the K word.
Yeah.
But and the K word never happened. But then he shows me the gun in the glove compartment of his car. He carries a loaded gun. And I said, okay, that's enough. Turn around. I'm out of here. So he's driving me back to the airport. And, I thought to myself, here I am with $60,000 cash in my pocket. Who knows what's a few blocks away from here. So I sucked it up and I said, okay, Ray, it's $350 a poster.
Yeah.
So he takes me and brings me to this warehouse, and he had taken all these posters and he laid them out flat. He figured out the dates, wrote them on the back, built custom boxes for them, stained a couple of the boxes. These things were lovingly cared for. The guy really loved music, but he was a jerk, a real jerk. And he told me about the time he punched his son in the face and almost knocked him down the stairs because he used the F word with his mom. He talked about killing grannies when he was in the army in Korea. I mean, this guy was not a friendly guy.
Right.
But we had a couple of things in common: beer, country music. I like to dance. So we went, and before we went to see the posters, actually, we went and we talked beer. He took me to the VFW, and I had some cheap 10 cents a glass of beer at the VFW, and we talked country music, and he realized that I really knew my country music.
Right.
And I told him that I like to dance. And then later on, some woman comes over to me in the VFW and says, hey, you want to dance? I said, sure. So I didn't know it was his girlfriend. He said his girlfriend up with me to see if I could really dance. So I can really dance. So I had a swing dance with his girlfriend. And at that point, I think we had a much better relationship.
Right.
So
well, also the fact he owned a gun. So anytime you're not gonna piss off people that own a gun.
No.
Especially that you saw, right? Like in the
there it was in his glove compartment.
So was this a one-time purchase, or did you buy more stuff?
I was there up in Alaska three times. So first time I went up there, I had the $60,000. I spent 12 hours a day with Ray for 3 days. So a long time. And I spent about $60,000, all the money I had. Actually, I spent more because I had a wire for another $20,000. So I spent $80,000 worth for posters, and I came home and I sold half of the posters for $80,000.
Right.
and I got to keep half of them. I said, oh, this is great.
That's a good deal. Yeah.
So now the quality of the posters are going down. The first time I got Chuck Berry and Roy Orbison, and some really cool stuff. And country-wise, there was some old Merle Haggard and Carter sisters. But first time I bought all the $350 posters. So a few years later, he calls I call him up and I say, I want to come up again, but I only spent $350 a poster. He goes, sorry, that's what they are, $350. So I figure, okay, I'll give it a try. I have a good eye. If I like the poster, someone else is going to generally like it. So I went up there. This is a good aside. He says to me, you don't need a hotel. So what do you mean I don't even need a hotel? So, I got you all set, And I said, oh, that's great, So I go up there. He says, you're going to save your money. You can stay in my girlfriend's trailer and only pay $100 a night instead of the $125 a night you would have had to pay at the hotel.
No,
I
you're
just
like,
saved you $50.
Yeah, you're like, I'll take the hotel.
Yeah, well, I couldn't because he told me not to get a car. He was going to drive me back and forth because we were just going to look at posters and do nothing else. So and also you don't want to piss off a guy with a gun in his car.
That's true.
So I stayed in this lopsided trailer, and I spent $60,000 on posters, and I came back home and I sold half of them for $60,000 and kept the rest.
That's awesome. So
So,
you have some of the posters there,
oh
right?
yeah, I have loads of them. I have loads of them.
Can you show us a couple?
Sure. I should tell you there's more to this story. There's a third visit.
Oh,
But
okay.
if you want to see some of them now, I'll be glad to show you a couple.
Let's hear the third visit.
Okay. That's the most important one.
Okay.
So by now, after the second visit, everything that was worth $350 was gone. There were a lot of $350 in 2001 dollars, or what posters were worth in 2001. So I'd call him up every year and say, what's going on? I'd buy hundreds more. I'd spend another $80,000, but you got to charge me less. And he said no, and eventually he died. Now, he had 11 kids by his 7 wives. For some reason, he couldn't stay married. A nice guy like that, who could expect something like that? But he had one son that I had met who calls me up one day and says, Mitch, Dad's dead. I want to sell the posters. I want to sell them all in one lump sum.
Right.
So I said, well, what are you going to do? He says, well, my idea was to go to Nashville, carry the posters around from door to door and sell the posters. I said, you crazy? I can sell the posters for you. He said, well, I got Flatt & Scruggs posters. They're worth $300 a piece. This is worth $1 billion. And I said, well, the first Flatt & Scruggs poster is worth $300, but I saw you have 500 Flatt & Scruggs posters. So the first one's worth $300. The second's worth $250, and eventually they're worth 35 cents a poster.
Right.
So you're never going to get rid of them. So I said, I'll broker a deal for you. So, well, you're not going to be able to do anything with the Country Music Hall of Fame. So I tried the Country Music Hall of Fame, and they don't want to spend it. So I said, let me talk things around. So the first place I called was the Country Music Hall of Fame. I called up Jim Sheridan, and I called up Jim. I said, I can buy these posters. He said, yeah, we know where the posters are. We can't deal with this guy. I said, I can deal with the guy.
Right.
I've been talking to his son. He's dead. I can deal with him. So he said, well, we have no money. Well, we're moving from our old place. The Country Music Hall of Fame is moving from its old place to the new place, and we have no money. So I said, let me talk to one of the vice presidents. So I called up one of the vice presidents, and I said, look, this is ridiculous. You have all the old, you own Hat Show Print. You have all the old block prints, all the old linotype, all the old machines, and none of the posters.
Right.
I can get 8,000 posters for you. If you don't have the money, find the money.
Right.
So that they started asking around, and they got a sponsor. So someone said, I'll give you $35,000 to buy all the rest of the posters. So I called up Ray's son, and we wheeled back and forth. And I said, look, the truth of it is, how are you going to sell 500 Flatt & Scruggs?
Right. Yeah. It'll take you forever, and it's not
forever. You're never going to do it.
Yeah.
You're never going to do it. Here, I've brokered a deal with the Country Music Hall of Fame. They're the only people who would be interested in having all of them,
right,
so they can show all the different dates. And they even like the ones that were written on, because the ones that were written on showed how the guy who owned Hatch was changing the poster around.
Yeah.
So we made a deal for $35,000, and out of the $35,000, I didn't get any money out of it. I got 300 posters, right of first refusal for any of the posters.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
that is awesome.
So me and Jim Sheridan meet in Alaska, and we meet his son, who was kind of nice. We went there, and they made us all kinds of dinners and stuff like that. And we went through all the posters, and there was some fabulous stuff. And we talked about his dad, and we took all these 35 boxes of posters, we put them on pallets and wrapped them in saran wrap and got them shipped to the Country Music Hall of Fame. And as we're leaving, as we're walking out the door, as we finished talking about his dad and how obnoxious his dad was. And we read parts of his diary of his dad in Korea. Holy crap. I mean, this stuff was really scary, but we had a real nice time with the son. And as we're walking out the door, the son says to us, "Oh, by the way, you can take my guns out of my cold, dead hands." We walk out the door and we go, "What the hell was that?" we just finished this $35,000 deal, and
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
anyways, you can see the posters in Hatch have them all up on the internet now, except for the ones that I have.
Yeah.
And it was a good deal for me because I've made enough money to make the deal worthwhile. And I love country music and bluegrass, which most of them were. But some great rock and roll posters in there too.
Yeah.
And now I can go get them and show you some.
Yeah. Let's see some.
Hold on here. I should start off by showing you some of the Hatch because that's what we were talking about. Let's see.
And I just want to call out your website, right? Cardboard Kid.
Yes, KARDBOARDKID.
Cardboard Kid.
Cardboardkid.com. So,
wow.
Here's a nice Willie Nelson, and I have another Willie Nelson back there. These are all 60s Willie Nelsons. Pretty neat stuff. This is one of the prizes that I got out of the collection. Warren Smith.
Oh, Jerry Lee Lewis. Wow.
Sonny Burgess. Don't dare miss it.
Yeah.
I wish I could have been there.
Yeah.
More Jerry Lee Lewis and Conway Twitty.
Wow. And that design, it's just that like newspaper headline design, you know?
Block print type stuff. This is really cool. Dale Hawkins for Susie Q. Dale Hawkins. Benefit for crippled children.
Wow.
Children and adults.
Yeah. Benefit of Nashville. Neat. Very cool.
Yeah. And then some of the older stuff, Arthur Gunter of Baby Let's Play House fame. Oh, there's so many of them here. Some great Johnny Cash.
Wow, Johnny Cash. That is
Johnny
awesome.
Cash and his boys. More Johnny Cash, Wanda Jackson.
Bobby Helms. Yeah, wow.
Bobby Helms is my special angel.
So cool.
Oh yeah, the country stuff was unbelievable in there. And I didn't pull all the country stuff down. There's a lot of bluegrass. There's Bill Monroe and Flatt and Scruggs and the Carter family and Jim and Jesse and Stanley Brothers, if you like bluegrass, and every country artist, George Jones, Tammy Wynette, Loretta Lynn, all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
I pulled out some other posters that aren't necessarily Hatches, but just things that I thought you might be interested in. I pulled out quickly. Stuff that I'm always after, always looking for. Here's a nice Ike and Tina.
Wow, that's such a cool one.
Yeah, this is a really pretty one.
Yeah.
I really love it. These are all in Mylar, so you'll get a little bit of a glare. Little Willie John, Give Me the Fever with the Upsetters.
The Upsetters, right? Wow, look at that.
Jimi Hendrix played with for a couple of weeks or however long that was. 1955 Little Richard poster.
Wow.
So, boy,
so cool.
Yeah, these are really fun.
So everyone should check out cardboardkid.com and check out your stuff, right? I mean, absolutely.
Yes, I mean, a lot of stuff I buy and sell, and a lot of stuff has been traded, but I have some great bluegrass, blues posters and great rock and roll and great country. Here's a Hank Williams that I still have. I did own the Hank Williams concert poster for the one in Canton, the concert in Canton that he died on the way to, which sold for 150 grand. Yeah, that was nice. Getting that wasn't easy. Roy Orbison pre-sunglasses.
Wow.
That's
Baby
a really
face.
cool one. Yeah.
Well,
And
Mitch, this has been an awesome Rock and Roll Fridays, and I'm going to have you back on to show more posters and talk more music. So thank you so much for being on.
thank you, Michael. This was really fun.